Okay, so you can see it where it says getting started Board Effect Administrator training.
Right now I just see the screen, but you can just go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, I just want to double check. Did you see it just change?
No. I see like just our names and things like that.
Okay, did that change? Say agenda. I don't know what
I
it's.
would just say go forward and I'll try to figure it out. I don't want to hold you up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll be showing you the ins and outs of your Board Effect platform. What we mostly want to take care of today is just a general introduction and background to everything you have available in your Board Effect platform. So what you will see today should look a little familiar if you've had a chance to look at the Getting Started series. If you haven't had a chance to look at those, of course, you can always go back to those. We'll be also taking a deeper dive into creating those events and meeting books. I will be pausing throughout, of course, if I haven't heard from you, just to double check if you do have any questions. If you don't, though, at the end, there will be plenty of time for Q&A. A quick overview of how the platform was developed. So everything you will see is designed around the work of boards. We have broken it down into 3 meeting cycles. Today, we will largely focus on the meeting cycle. So of course, scheduling your meetings, creating those books, making sure they're available to your users, and so on. A little bit about the ongoing education and support that is also included. Of course, each week we do actually host client webinars. Those are about 1 to 2 times every week. You'll, of course, always have access to our knowledge base. That's where you're going to find your training guides, videos, webinar recordings if you can't make them. So when we get into the actual live platform, I'll be showing where you can find those. We keep you up to date with BE announcements. We do hold an annual user conference. This year it will be in September. You are always more than welcome to schedule a Q&A session with a client advocate. So of course, today we're going to go through the basics. You'll get those recordings. You'll start working in your platform a little bit more. But if you do want to schedule a specific call, maybe on a specific setting like templates or something, you can always do that. And then you do have ongoing help from client services. So that would be all the client advocates, but we're also backed up by the entire support team. Just to give you an idea of the landing page from the board member's point of view. So keep in mind, of course, this is a little different than what you as an administrator sees. But from the left-hand side, they're going to see whatever boards and committees that they are a part of. So again, you as a system administrator, you see all of the workrooms you've created no matter what, but your users will only see the ones that they are a part of. Found in the middle would be your welcome message, or you can think of it as a bulletin board. So you could post photos, videos, maybe anything new going on in the organization, your company was in the news, something like that, you can put it right there. So right when they log in, they do see it. The nice thing too is it gives the last time it was updated so they know when the last time they looked at that information, if there's new things out there. To the right would be any news announcements you want to post for them. So, you know, you could see here, this one's in regards to Audit Finance Committee, or it could be an announcement for all workrooms to see. So again, you can have it separated, but anything, again, different announcements, like I have one that says reports are due, something like that. At the very top, you're going to see the libraries and directory. So this is where they're going to find all of their resources. So the library is where you can store like your bylaws, policies and procedures, that type of information. And the directory is where they're going to find the other contacts. So whoever else is part of their boards and committees. All the way to the right is going to be their own user menu. So they click that drop down, they'll be able to see their own profile and of course properly sign out of this platform. 3 tabs to the right, your top one is going to be your actions or approvals and workflow. Let's say, for example, you've loaded a document into the library or something and you set it up for approval. Here's where they would view it, approve or disapprove it, and of course even sign. Next tab is going to be a global search. So this does allow them to search for titles throughout their entire platform. And then the final tab is that help tab. It is kind of a shortcut to the knowledge base, but it's where they're going to find, again, all of their training materials, videos, guides, the support number, and so on. Back to the middle, but towards the bottom, this is where they're going to see their next or their upcoming events. It will display the next 5. So if you do have more than 5 though, there will be a view more button. So they click on it, see what other meetings you have upcoming. But again, it will display the next 5. Now we do call those an event card. So of course, everything that is in goes along with this meeting is attached to it. There they can see the meeting information, location, and time, and so on, RSVP to it. But of course, also all of their meeting materials will be attached. So this is where they're going to access their book whenever it's available. If you're using other collaborative tools along with that event, it will be attached to that card as well. If you are using polls or surveys, discussions, anything outside an event, if they just keep scrolling, it will display those down below. Now, just to kind of give a closer view of that event card, first thing they're going to see is that title. So September 2019 Board of Directors meeting is an example. If they do click on it, it will bring up additional meeting details, like, again, the location. If you've given a full address, they'll be able to find directions. They'll be able to see the guest list through here and so on. They'll also see what type of event it is. So in your platform, you can actually distinguish maybe what is a board meeting compared to a committee meeting, to a social or fundraising event. So you can actually color code them. And then when you're creating your event, you decide what type of event it is. That way, when they're kind of scrolling through their cards, if they maybe sit on multiple boards or committees in your platform, they'd be able to easily distinguish which one's what. They also have that RSVP grid. So if you've tracked RSVPs, here they would be able to respond or modify their response. So when you do track RSVPs and you create your guest list, you can actually decide if you want to request the responses, which would send out an email notification to them. Through that email notification, they would be able to RSVP. So say if they'll be there or not. But through here, when they actually log into the platform, they will either be able to, of course, change it if they've already responded or respond right from here. Again, on the bottom of the card is going to be all of their meeting materials that go along with it. So this is where they're going to access their book. Again, if you're using other collaborative tools with the event, like survey or poll discussions, those would be attached to here as well. They can also click on that little drop down. It will allow them to export that meeting to their calendar. And at the very top though, they have a view all events button. If they click on it, it'll actually bring up a calendar grid for them. So they can look at past meetings because of course those fall off their screen. So if they want to go ahead and view those, they just view that calendar. They can view it weekly, monthly, yearly, even go to future meetings again. And then they have that export dropdown. So they would have an export events option. So that would be all of the events. And then they might also have a subscribe button, just depending on if you've turned that on under your settings. All right, before I move forward, I do want to double check any questions of what you've already seen so far.
I actually had a question. I can see the screen, by the way.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I had a question about the calendar invites, and like maybe the differences between sending it directly through the email as we've done in the past, or having people like accept or decline or indicate their responses online. I was just wondering if there's a difference in the method that they do it, because right now we don't have like an integration with our I guess calendar invite system.
Okay. So yeah, so I mean, basically if you're just meaning the overall calendar invite, or are you meaning like the RSVPs?
I guess the RSVPs, like just tracking who's, so we can get an idea of who will be attending and who probably won't be.
Yeah, so when you do turn on the RSVPs, again, they'd actually be able to respond right away through an email, or they can just come in here. It will give you an actual, so you'll have like a response kind of chart. You'll be able to, it actually tells you like who said accepted, maybe declined, or even there's an option now, I believe, that says remote if you've put in like a call-in information.
Okay.
So it'll actually kind of organize that for you. You'll be able to see that on your end. And then you'll also be able to change it if needed. So if they've already responded and said they'll be able to, make it, and all of a sudden they message you, say, hey, I can't make it anymore, you can actually go in and change it yourself. But that way, again, it's all kind of tracked within that event.
Okay. I mean, I guess I was trying to figure out if like it was done through email, if it would feed back into the board effect, or if
It
that's
would,
not the case.
yes.
Okay.
Yep. So it would go back so if they email, it looks exactly like this RSVP grid. It's just in their email. And so when they respond, it does it goes back into board effect.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So here, of course, I just want to go over, I don't know why this isn't, hold on, sorry. I'm just trying to, there we go. All right. So here's building your meeting books, just kind of an idea of what you can do in advance. So of course you can populate your calendar. If you know your dates maybe for your meetings for the next few months, the next year, go ahead and get those scheduled, of course. You can request your materials from your contributors at any point. So if you do have someone that's going to add in a presentation, you could go ahead and request that in advance, give them their deadline of when it's due. You can start organizing your documents, of course. Maybe if you start receiving documents from a bunch of different people, you can place it just in a one folder or something. That way, when you're ready to add them in, you just have to look for them in one place. And of course, you can create your agenda or outline at any point, or again, even your template. So I will get into templates when we get to the live platform itself. I do think they're super helpful, especially if you have kind of the same outline for each meeting. But of course, you can always do all that in advance. All right, so this is going to be a high-level view of putting the meeting books together. So your left side is a sample of a typical agenda. The one shown here is the one generated from BoardEffect. And then the right side is the outline, so how you're actually going to build it in the system. So what you'll want to do first is, of course, add in your main categories. So your main items, call to order, your roll call, maybe welcome, approval of minutes, president's report, chair's report, and so on. So again, those are going to be your main categories. You just start adding them in. Even if they're not in the right order, you're always able to go back in and rearrange them. But along with your main categories, if you do have sub-items, you can add those in as well. Those are your subcategories. You can add in as many as you'd like, and they nest just right under that item. So you can see as an example there, committee reports is a main category, but then subcategory is audit finance committee report, executive committee report, and so on. So again, you can add in as many as you'd like. They just nest right under that item. Now, once you have your categories in there, of course, you can start uploading your files. Now you can drag and drop, or you can click where it says click for more options that will allow you to browse your computer. But what you're going to do is you're going to actually attach the files directly to the categories they belong with. So you could see here as an example, approval of minutes is your main category. And of course, you're going to upload your minutes directly to it. That way, again, they're viewing that item. They know that document goes along with it. And then even if you have subcategories, you can attach files to those as well. You can have as many as you'd like. Again, as you see here, there's 3 attached to the Audit Finance Committee report. Once you add them in there, again, you can rearrange them, you can rename them. So there's file drop-down menus that I'm going to get to in just a second. But again, that way when they're on that item, they're viewing those specific documents that go along with it. Okay. So again, main categories and subcategories, and then add your files directly to them. So then getting into the actual menus. So each main category, subcategory, and file that you have outlined has its own options menu. So the main and subcategory menus have the same exact one. The file does have a slightly different one, as you'll see. So your main category and subcategory menu. First thing you're going to see in that dropdown is a rename option. So of course, maybe you want to type in, maybe you've selected a template. So it brought over all of your categories and so on, but you want to rename some of them. Maybe your main title is approval of minutes, but this time you want to title it approval of minutes from December's meeting. So you can add that in. You can add in a time or a presenter. You can always delete the category. Maybe you're not going to discuss this item in this meeting. Go ahead and get rid of it. Here's where you can manage those contributors. So again, if you have someone that's going to add a presentation to this category, that's where you can manage that. And then you do also have additional security to it. So again, maybe this category is only for specific people. You can make it available just to them. You also then have your file menu. So again, this would be for any of your documents you upload into this meeting. You have a rename option again. So with that, like maybe you've uploaded a Word doc. You don't want that .docx at the end. You can go ahead and get rid of that. You could title it approval of minutes from last meeting. So go ahead and rename that however you need to. Then you have replace. So what that's going to do is obviously replace the file. Maybe you've already uploaded it into the meeting, and now all of a sudden there's an updated version. Now replace you'll want to use if your users have already been able to see this book. So let's say you've made this book visible, they've already been logging in, looking at everything, looking at their documents and making notes all over it. Replace is then just going to put that new version directly back where that older version was. It will take their notes then. That way they don't lose any notes that they've already previously made. It will carry over to that updated version. So it's going to do its best to display where they previously made them. So definitely recommend it if you've already made that book visible. You can always preview it. You've uploaded, you want to make sure it's the correct one. You can add on that approval workflow. So request that approval for this document if needed. But then you always have delete as well, and delete's in red for a reason. We do recommend delete only, of course, if they haven't been able to see this book yet. So if you know they haven't gone in and make notes all over it, you can always delete it. Or of course, maybe you added in here, thought you guys were going to discuss it in the meeting, you're not going to, you can always delete it, of course, that way. Now, of course, you can even build the book just to see your work in progress. So you will not see that build book option though until you've added at least one file into the meeting. So once you do, you can actually click build book. It will compile it all in a one big PDF so you can view it, see how it looks. You can, of course, still edit as needed. So if you have changes that you need to make up to the last minute, feel free to. Just make sure, of course, you'll need to click build book in order to preview it, have that newer version. If you've scheduled meetings out, you can actually just link it to the appropriate meeting. And then, of course, your final step is to make it visible to your users. So, of course, as you're building it, making your changes, they will not see any of it until you've actually clicked that little dot that will change green and it'll say book is visible. Another indication that you've made that book visible is now you will have the option to notify your users. So you will not see that notify users button until you've made the book visible. That way you're not accidentally messaging them, letting them know a book is visible when it's not. But of course, that's again how you let them know it is now visible. They can log in and start looking over their materials. All right, so we're going to actually get into the live platform now. So before I do, though, any other questions before we get into all of that?
No.
Okay. So let me go ahead. Oh, hold on one second. Sorry, just having some issues on my end now.
No, it's okay. I actually logged in through my computer, so I have a bigger screen.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
My computer is actually restarting.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that's why I was, I think, having some difficulties too.
Okay, perfect. So you should be able to see my screen now. Again, do you see the BoardEffect platform now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you also probably noticed is that from the slides that I was previously showing, the slides haven't been updated yet. Towards the end of the year, there was an update to the actual BoardEffect view, the look of it all. So that's why it kind of looks a little different now on my end. And probably if you've logged in, you've probably noticed it as well. But there's a slight difference of what you just saw compared to those slides, but everything works the same. It's just a newer view. So we are in my platform now. Again, I am a top administrator or system administrator, so I see everything. So just to kind of give you an overview again of this landing page, when you log in, what you see, and then we'll get into actually creating your book. But left-hand side, again, you're going to see all of the workrooms. So all of them you've created, again, no matter what, since you are a system administrator. In the middle, again, is going to be your welcome message. We're not going to spend too much time on this just because there are webinar recordings, training videos just strictly based on the welcome message, so everything you can do with that. But as you can see, again, you can add in photos, videos. It's just important information you want them to see right when they log in. If I click this little pencil icon, you're going to see all the different tools that you have. So you do have an overall one that's, again, on the landing page. All of your users see this right when they log in, but also keep in mind you do have a different welcome message for each of your workrooms. So if you do want to have one specific towards them, you can. All the way to the right is going to be your BE announcements and news. So we already went over news through the slides. News is strictly just for your users. So again, anything you want to announce to them. Like I had an example of reports are due. Maybe there's an update again going on in your organization you want to let them know about. It can be for all workrooms or it can be geared towards a specific one. And that's indicated with the italicized kind of text or font. But then right above that, we have BE announcements. And that is, again, only available to your administrators. This is where we communicate to you guys about anything new going on. So if there's like an iOS app update, we'll put that here for you. We put the webinar schedule here for you, where you can click that link and get to it, see all the dates available, and so on. So again, BE announcements is only available for administrators. All the way to the top, we again have your libraries and directories. So that's where you're going to add in your resources. Directories, of course, an area where you can add, modify, deactivate your users. And then you do have your settings. We'll get into those in just a little bit. All the way to the right, again, you have your tabs, your actions, your global search. But most importantly, you have your help tab. So again, this is where you have access to the knowledge base and support information. So if I go ahead and click access our knowledge base, so all your videos, guides, if you can't make a webinar, those are recorded for you in here. You have that Getting Started series. So again, if you hadn't had a chance to look at those yet, it's everything we're going through today, but you have videos based on that. But you can see how we train your board and committee members. So this is for them. They would have access to it again when they log in, but just to their information. So that kind of helps them. And then also, here's all of your administrator training and guides. So again, that is always available to you from your landing page or from your Boardify platform. All you're doing is clicking this little help tab, and then it's the very first thing where it says access our knowledge base. Now, also as an administrator, you can create a ticket. So if you are having issues with something through the platform, you can actually click create ticket and it will contact support for you. You also have our support number here. But then at the very bottom, you have organizational representative. Now you're going to see my name here just because, of course, we're in my platform. But when you're in your platform, that is going to be anybody that you want, let's say, your users to contact from your organization. So it might be, of course, your information you want to put there if it's not there. So again, let's say a user logs in, they're working through their workroom, maybe have a question about it, how to work through it, where their meeting is or something like that. If they come here, that's going to be that organizational representative. If you do realize that needs to be updated, changed, under your settings, under general settings, so it's kind of the first tab, it's all of that information. So this is where you're going to put in your platform title as well. So if you realize that's wrong, you can change that there. But then this is where you're going to put that organizational representative's information. All right, so then we're going to scroll down. So again, kind of all looks the same, just of course a lot more information for you as an administrator. And now we have our upcoming events. So again, it will display the next 5. And scroll through. I do not have more than 5, but if I did, it would have a view more option. So maybe again, if you've scheduled them out for the next year, they can click that, have that full calendar view. But when it gets to our actual event, so here's our event card. We see our RSVP grid and so on. This one I've already created a book and made it visible. So we're going to do it based off a new event though. But I do want to mention, kind of as a shortcut, let's say you typically have the same information for all of your meetings, meaning like the same location, same start time, same like kind of description or note to them. Once you create an event, let's say I like all this information that goes along with it, basically it's just a copy of this meeting. From this dropdown, you can actually click copy. And what that's going to do is create a copy based off of that. It's also going to indicate that in the title, saying that it's the copy. That way you know you're not going in and changing anything in regards to that original meeting. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my April 2020 meeting. Okay. So again, carries over that information. I just have to change the title to show again the new month. It does carry over your start time that you had, but of course you'll need to come in here and change the date. So I'm going to go in April 30th, 8 a.m. staying the same, but I do need to come over here and change the end time. So you just click in here and click the clock. You can actually use those arrows or click on the number and it'll actually bring up all the digits. And then what it carries over to is location. So again, if you have your meetings in the same place, it brings this over. If you've already put in the full address, you won't have to worry about that. Again, it carries it all over for you. So that's just by copying that original meeting or whatever meeting you want to copy from. And then we also have this description box. This is just kind of a note that maybe goes along with the meeting. You can always leave this blank. For an example, I just have like meeting materials when they're going to be available. So I always let them know, hey, meeting materials will be available the month before. So this one, since it's our April meeting, will be available mid-March. Again, you can see you have all these different tools. You can make this a lot prettier than what mine looks like. You can add in a location photo. And then one thing I do want to mention is this facilitator and facilitator email. Let's say, of course, you're the main person they know to contact for all meetings. This meeting, you're not able to make it. So you have someone else in charge. You can make them the facilitator. That way, again, if your users have any questions about this meeting, maybe the location or something, that could be the person they contact. Here's where you can change that event category. So these are just my examples, but of course you can create your own. I'll show you where in just a little bit when we go through settings. Here's where you can track RSVPs. If you do have an account with GoToMeeting or Zoom, of course you can integrate those into the system. Now before I click save though, I'm going to scroll down and here's my guest list. So